Welcome to Minnesota Legislative Report, our region's longest-running public affairs program. Lawmakers from northeastern Minnesota are joining us today for a recap of the week's activities at the state capitol. Minnesota Legislative Report starts now.
Hello and welcome to the Minnesota Legislative Report. I'm your host, Tony Sertich. We're recording our show this week on Friday and coming to you from our homes via Zoom. Even though the show isn't live, we encourage you to email your questions for next week to ask@wdsc.org. You'll find that email address at the bottom of your screen during today's program. Joining us this week is Representative Dave Lislegard, a DFLer from Aurora, representing House District 6B. Welcome, Representative Lislegard.
Welcome, thank you.
Yes, and Representative Nathan Nelson, a Republican lawmaker from Hinckley, representing House District 11B. Welcome, Representative Nelson.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here this morning.
Representative Nelson, you're newer to the legislature, and so talking about what's happened in the past maybe seems moot, but how's it going serving in this uncertain time where it seems like the legislature is in starting and stopping mode and doing a lot of remote meetings?
Well, it's, I got elected in a special election, so I've been here just over a year. It was end of March last year I was sworn in, and it was kind of a whirlwind end of session last year for me, and now, this year is nothing but abnormal as well. We started out early February and kind of started off into the bonding year and trying to kind of see what was happening there. There's been some different committees working and whatnot, but yeah, as we get into this new normal of remote meetings and technological issues, we run into bandwidth issues and maybe not being able to hear fully what another individual said, and so it's been a challenge that way. But at the same time, there's I've heard some good things about it. People spending time with their families that because of other events that have been canceled, that whether it's sporting or something like that, or not going to meetings. And so there's kind of a new normal that we're getting used to, and there's good things about it, and there's definitely some drawbacks to it. But I think most people are really trying to work through this as best they can and see what our path forward is and what that should look like.
Great. Representative Lislegard, how is it serving under this new normal for you?
Well, first of all, thanks again for having us, because this is part of the process and the communication for us to touch people, and so they see that what we are doing. And as Representative Nelson said, I think the word is challenge. It's definitely different, but where there's challenge, there's opportunity, and it's extremely difficult. I'm the type of individual, like many of my colleagues, that like to look people in the eye, see it, feel it, and touch it, to be able to understand it. And so it is different, but I commend the leadership, both Democrats, Republicans, and the governor, for working through this process to help the citizens of Minnesota as we all go through this challenging time. So I'm not the most technical guy, but I'm learning. So I think from a growth and development standpoint, me, myself, and others will come out of this better prepared for the future.
Great. Representative Nelson, there's been a number of COVID-19 responses already by the legislature and some executive action by Governor Walz. Can you touch on some of the highlights that you think that was important that the legislature has done thus far? And maybe looking forward, are there any other things that you'd like to see being done in your time in the legislature?
Yeah, thank you. Some of the things that have been done so far was one was opening up the unemployment for people that maybe normally wouldn't be qualified for it. Self-employed, subcontractor, individual contractors that typically wouldn't be paying into unemployment and be eligible for it, but because of the COVID-19. Their business have been shut down and they're unable to operate. I think of salon owners and things like that. That's just to name a couple. But the that was an important help for them. And, unfortunately, some of that went very smoothly, and others was a little bit of a challenge to get them the funds flowing. Department of Employment and Economic Development, they had some rulemaking process. So we can pass something, but then there's the rulemaking that happens after that can take a little bit longer to take place than what maybe a legislator would like to see it happen. But I think that's been some of the important things, just trying to get the help out to our constituents and to our neighbors that is needed, and just be helping them in that way. And I think going forward with this, I think we need to look at how we can start safely getting back together, whether it's a business opening up or having groups, whether it's going to our places of worship or things like that, safely looking at how to do that. And I think that's an important part of the legislature in doing that, and seeing how we do that.
Great. And we certainly heard from Governor Walz earlier this week talking about schools being remote for the rest of the school year, and some reopenings happening, turning the dial forward a bit for additional businesses reopening. Representative Lislegard, can I get your comments a bit on what's been done thus far and some things you might be looking forward to as far as the legislature can do to help with reopening, to help with where we're going with COVID-19?
Yeah, sure. Well, obviously it's a trying time. We've never been through this before, but what I've seen the state of Minnesota do is obviously identify a crisis that's before us, and they set politics aside. Democrats, Republicans, administration coming together, and we as a legislature allocated money during this peacetime that allowed the governor to move quickly when needed to prepare for this. And I think the state of Minnesota and its people have done an outstanding job to get to where we're at today. As Representative Nelson said, that this challenge is not over, and we have businesses and individuals that are going through a very, very difficult time. And we have done certain things to help, but we need to go farther. And I think we all agree that the what is how do we open? At some point we will, but it's the how. And we need to do it in a way and in a manner that protects the people and does not allow this to explode and go backwards for the very thing that we tried to prevent, in which we have. And so I think we have some challenges, but I think it's the planning process. I think the governor has done an outstanding job bringing people together and having that dialogue with professionals based on science to get us to the point where we're at today. Now I think what he's doing, working with the legislature to start to have these conversations, bring in business, labor, and communities to start the planning process to see how we can open in the right way. So as schools, that just breaks my heart. You see on Facebook and you see these things where these seniors have lost an opportunity, a part of a moment in their life that they'll never get back. But they're probably learning a lesson at a very early age that if they take it and they run with it, that life isn't always fair. It's uncertain, but you have to persevere and you have to work your way through it. And that's what we have to do as a state, and we have to do it collectively as the legislature, agencies, and the people of Minnesota working with the governor.
Certainly, all Minnesotans are impacted in one way, shape, or form with the public health aspect of this, with the economic aspect of this. Representative Nelson, what are you hearing? You serve in and around the Hinckley area down there, so a lot of farming, small businesses, the tribal nation with the casino shut down. What are some of the economic and public health challenges you're hearing from folks you represent?
I think some of the challenges that we're seeing is the businesses that are being shut down, they're questioning how long can we stay idled. And I think there's been some of the unintended consequences of, we did the shutdown to preserve PPE, the personal protective equipment, making sure that the hospitals are stocked up with that. and making sure that we slow the curve, and that they're ultimately our hospitals are ready for this to happen. And our clinics are closing their doors, hopefully not permanently. Hopefully it's just temporary, because they're not having elective visits. There's people that are concerned of going to the doctor just for a checkup, and maybe they have strep throat and they're concerned they're putting it off longer. So there's concerns that way, that we're not getting the treatment that we need, and what's happening with our nurses now that they're being laid off and furloughed. And there's concerns. You talked about the casinos being closed down, and there's concern there, because the casino, the funds that come in from that, that goes in and comes into the tribe, and then it goes back out through their healthcare and the services that the tribe provides. I mean, it's their funding mechanism, much like the state has the taxes that we bring in from sales tax and employment tax. The casino is a big funder for the tribe, and so that's something that the tribe is looking at. How are we going to continue on, and what's their step forward? As far as small businesses, I'm hearing from quite a few of them are saying, hey, look, I can, this is serious. We can take some steps forward. We can limit, whether it's individuals in the store, we can limit the number of them that are in our stores. We, our employees, we can take steps to make sure that our employees are healthy when they're here, that we're not transmitting. And our small business are wanting to safely open up and safely take a step forward, and I think everybody's realizing the seriousness of this, and both for the financial side, but also the health side, and both the physical health and the mental health. I think it's important to be able to be working and see value in that, and for those that can, I think we need to continue to work from home as much as possible, but that's not possible in every job.
Representative Lislegard, you serve up on the Iron Range, where mining is important, tourism, and many small businesses as well. What are you hearing are some of the challenges and opportunities from the folks you serve from a business and a public health perspective?
Well, it's multifaceted, right? So I'll start with the healthcare, and like Representative Nelson said, that we have done everything that was asked of us, and that is to cut back or eliminate elective processes and procedures, and there is a consequence to that. It's about cash flow as we prepare, and when you start laying off the very individuals that are going to be taking care of you, that's a challenge. But these are businesses, and when you take away their revenue for a period of time, it is a challenge to be able to meet the need when you're called upon. So the PPE, I've met with nurses and stuff like that, and they have told us that they still need more supplies. So I think it's important that we continue to prepare for that, because it is going to come. Hopefully we flatten the curve to a point that it's not even really a curve anymore, that we just meet the need. And that is the hope and the prayer of all of us. Regarding small businesses, I think that is a very, very challenging thing that we're going to be facing. And I use a little business on the main street of Aurora, and some of these mom and pop shops, they're not the big corporations that have all the different departments to look and understand all the different processes, both state and federal, where to find these resources to help them. They're worried about frying eggs and sausage and serving the people of their community. And so it's a challenge for some of the businesses that don't understand it, what is out there and what is available. So I was working with the local chamber, Laurentian Chamber, and we had that very discussion to reach out to some of these businesses that are just trying to make it, and to make sure that they're having access and understanding the process where they can get help. And, more globally, the mining, that is the meat and potatoes of the Iron Range. It is who we are. It is the engine that drives this economy up here. And we are starting to see that that they are, it's a trickle-down effect. There's a lag time. We've seen blast furnaces across the country go down. I'll use U.S. Steel as an example. They have 10 blast furnaces. They shut down 5, and 2 of them are not going to reopen. And so it's a supply and demand. It's both domestically and it's globally. And when you have car manufacturers and you have the energy sector, those guys, those industries backing off, it does come back to us. And when we talk about cash flow, it's extremely important over this period of time that they have the cash flow to maintain and then also to start up. If, as these workers get laid off, there is a federal stimulus package that gives an added $600 to the unemployment they get through the state of Minnesota. So for a period of time, financially, many individuals will be okay. But it's that fear and uncertainty that when is it going to come back? What does it look like? And so we have to have compassion for the people that are going through this this fear. And there's a lot of individuals that they don't have the fear. They think that we should just open up and just go about our business. And there are other people on the other spectrum that are very concerned. And then you have the people in the middle where it's kind of like, how do we do this and how do we do it right? And how do we get through this? And I talk about, when you talk about small businesses, and we talk about the 3rd and the 4th of July on the Iron Range. And if you've never been to the Iron Range on the 3rd and 4th of July, it's something. And some of the challenges that they face is very alarming. That weekend or those 2 to 3 days is everything for them. That is where they raise the revenue to pay their taxes for the year, to pay their licenses, and all the permits that they need. And if we don't have that, that is an added challenge that they're going to have to face. So we really have to work together collectively to try to find a solution to make this work. And it's going to be challenging. I'm not going to lie to you. The difference between the federal government, bless their heart, and the state is we have to have a balanced budget. And the state, the feds, they're just writing checks. They're writing checks that my children and my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren, we're going to be paying for. But they did what they had to do. And we need to work through that. For us, we have challenges that we have to have a balanced budget. And I think that is going to be a conversation that is going to help or hinder what we do moving forward.
Thanks. And certainly also good news this week from Governor Walz, from Rochester Mayo and University of Minnesota, that testing, we should see an increase in testing capability as well in the state of Minnesota. One more question on COVID-19, Representative Nelson. Traditionally, this time of the year, you're at the state capitol for most of the week. You're in committee meetings, you're on the floor of the legislature, you're meeting with lobbyists, you're meeting with constituents. Now, with that cut off or significantly reduced, how do you stay connected to your constituents? What is a more typical legislative day like for you these days?
Typical legislative day for me, right now is, I'm getting text messages, emails, phone calls, and I don't even keep track of how many emails I get a day anymore. It's just they're constant, and the Zoom conferences or whatever, WebEx. I mean, we're on something all the time, and it's which creates some opportunities and some challenges. On one hand, I can be able to visit with some more constituents than if I've got, I'm sitting in a meeting at St. Paul. Some people can't travel there. They would like to. Well, now we can set up a virtual meeting and be able to do that. And I think, like Representative Lislegard said, I like to look people in the eye, and that's myself. I like to see them. I like to shake their hand. I like to say hello, and that personal connection that way is gone. But there are some some opportunities there using technology that does help, and really learning how to communicate in this new era we're in right now, and kind of the new normal. So that's been, my normal day is spending a lot of time on the phone. I've got a Bluetooth earpiece that usually goes dead about 3 in the afternoon, so I charge that up, and might have to hold my phone after that. But that's just kind of where we're at.
Representative Lislegard, what's your new normal day like, and are you hearing more from constituents and people, less? How's that going?
Well, it's extremely challenging. Going back to the first question that you asked, and I do have my earbuds in, and like Representative Nelson said that you have to recharge them quite a few times. But it's a lot on the phone, and a lot of people call, a lot of emails, as he stated, and we're just trying to work through it. Constituent services and some of the resources that we have, they're very, very helpful, and we're blessed to have them, and they work extremely hard. But some of the conversations I'm having is how do we come out of this and persevere, and on the back end, be stronger because of it. And one of them is with the mining industry. I think through this whole crisis, both domestically and globally, we've seen the importance of self-reliance. This is an opportunity for us to say, we need to be able to take care of ourselves, and we need to be able to have the tools and the resources here in this country if something like this should happen again. And I think that conversation is going to be coming forward, and I think that's going to make this state stronger. We have some of the best companies in the world. We're leading the way, both educational and medical, and obviously the mining industry. And it's just a wonderful opportunity that I think that once we persevere through this, and we will, this is a season, this is a moment, and we're going to be stronger on the back end. I'm going to learn, and others are going to learn how to use this technology and to be able to communicate this way when need be. So I'm excited for the opportunity. I have compassion for the people that have fear, because that fear and that anxiety is real. There are people in certain situations that they are vulnerable, and they are at risk. They're at higher risk. And I just ask the people that don't have the fear and they don't have the anxiety, have compassion for the people that do. And it's extremely important as we move forward to shop local. Yeah. Some of the things that we're seeing through this process is everybody is ordering online. And if you look at, I see FedEx trucks and UPS trucks, they're just zipping, and they're serving a purpose right now. But it's important for us to shop local. It's important for us to go out and be a part of the community, to be engaged, and when it is safe and when there is a plan put in place, so we keep people safe. So that is what I would say. I think that we need to stay positive, we need to stay vigilant, and we need to be willing to persevere and have compassion all at the same time.
Well, we only have a couple of minutes left, so I want to ask one more question to both of you. Representative Nelson, this year is generally a capital investment or bonding year, meaning the state does borrow some dollars to invest in public infrastructure across Minnesota. And I know both you and Representative Lislegard have a number of capital investment bills that you have introduced and are supporting. Can you talk a bit about your hopes and desires to see potentially a capital investment or bonding bill pass this session, and maybe highlight a project or two that you're supporting?
Yeah, this is a bonding year, as you stated, and a couple of the bills that I have is one of them is for the Pine Tech and Community College. Kind of look at an expansion and going on there. There's a couple of road projects, a couple of fire halls, some new city hall for Sturgeon Lake, and looking at some of these things. I think looking at what we need to prioritize. I think we need to look at what can get people back to work. And I think, looking at construction and building and stuff like that, I think is important. And I think looking to the future, I think, we've seen an increase in our community colleges and in our, learning there, some of the technical skills that are being taught there. And And I think that's really probably one of my biggest priority is that getting the funding for the community college there, seeing what we can do on that front. And then I think as it makes sense, whether it's a road project or something like that, making sure that when a time when our interest rates are low, that we can do that. At the same time, I think we need to, we don't know what the economic long term is going to be from this COVID-19, and so I think we need to be responsible in what we do as with bonding. But I think at the same time, it's important that we move forward with it and really pick what we think is going to be the best use of that funding going forward. And I think it's something important to look at.
Great. Representative Lislegard, I know this is hard to do, but 30 seconds left here. Can you talk a bit about bonding?
Yeah. Well, very much what Representative Nelson said. I think it's important. The interest rates are low. It's an opportunity to help communities and stimulate the economy all at the same time. These projects are needed, and it's important that we seize the moment because as the economy is hurting, this is one way to get people back to work and stimulate the economy at the same time. So I think it's extremely important that we have a reasonable, robust bonding year. And I think that is going to be the ultimate success of this session, along with working our way through this crisis all at the same time.
Great, thanks. Well, we're out of time, and I'd like to thank State Representatives Dave Lislegard and Nathan Nelson for joining us this week, and thank you for watching as well. Please join me again next week when we will be hearing the latest from St. Paul with legislators from northern Minnesota. From the team at WDSC, I'm Tony Sertich. It's been my pleasure to be with you today. Take care.